Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Before we begin the session, I would like to introduce a few admin details for you to take note of. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to type them using the Q&A button or through the chat, and we will take your questions during the Q&A time at the end. Lastly, please do not log off immediately at the end of the session, as we need your help to fill out a simple feedback survey on today's session as well. Thank you once again for joining us today. My name is Hashika, and I'm from the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office. Smart Nation Together is an online program developed by the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office as an online platform to share on tech-related topics and skills. Here, we aim to not only share with the community on basic tech skills and knowledge, but to encourage the community to expand their mindsets to consider opportunities in the digital economy. This afternoon, we present to you our 5G Unlock Tomorrow's Possibilities Today session. Today, we are joined by speakers from NUS, Singapore Polytechnic, and Tech Talent Assembly to explore Singapore's 5G technology journey on various 5G capabilities and AIoT applications. Our speakers are industry veterans who will guide you through on how 5G and AIoT can develop your workforce and create new opportunities through training and project collaborations. So firstly, we have Mr. Jim Lim, who will be giving a talk on, who'll be sharing with us about 5G, which is a platform for industry transformation. With connectivity at the heart of industry transformation, 5G systems have a significant role to play, not just in the evolution of communication, but likely the revolution of businesses and technology and society as a whole. And Mr. Jim Lim is currently the adjunct lecturer for NUS, SUSS, and he's also the founder of 59ST Ventures, which is a socio-techno network focusing in leveraging expertise, experiences, and connections of senior executives globally to contribute back to the society. Next, we have Mr. Tan Chi Seng, who will be sharing with us about augmenting solution with 5G and AIoT. IoT focuses on data interoperability, and industrial IoT uses data analytics to implement effective decision-making processes, while artificial intelligence adds learning capabilities to IoT, which gives birth to artificial intelligence of things, which is AIoT. Next, we have Mr. Tiong Gi, who will be sharing with us about artificial intelligence back to the future. The early use cases of AI in those days include expert systems for diagnosis, configuration for complex computer systems, among many. He will bring us on the evolution of AI from the previous times on to the present. So over to you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, MC. I think you need to make me the co-host so that I can open my video. Sure.
Oh, sorry. Give me a sec.
No worries.
Yeah. Are you able to access the PowerPoint? Okay, great.
I can access the PowerPoint. Okay, no worries. I can't on my video. Okay, no worries. Let's just continue. Okay, so yeah, thanks for introducing us, and welcome everyone to join this 5G talk organized by Smart Nation Office. Right, so I'm the first speaker. I'm as was mentioned, I'm the NUS Executive Education Fellow. In fact, I have a 5G course with NUS Scale that if you're interested, we can explore about that at the end of my talk. Okay, so my title today is actually 5G as a platform for. Okay. Ask me to click the video now. Okay, that's bad. My talk today is 5G, a platform for industry transformation, right? So we'll explore why is it called industry transformation, because actually a lot of people think of 3G, 4G as a consumer play. But if you have attended talks on 5G before, you know that 5G, one of the main value proposition is actually for industry transformation. That means it's a lot of focus on B2B kind of business rather than a pure B2C. Okay. Okay, so this is a very common slides used in evolution of mobile technologies when people introduce 5G, right? So you can see that it's almost every 10 years, we have one generation, right? From 1G to 2G all the way to 5G. And I'm sure today, if you Google a lot or read a lot of social media news, there's a lot of talk about 6G already, because if the 10-year cycle is correct, by 2030, we are expecting to have 6G already, right? And if we want to have something that we are ready for trials for 6G in 2030, right? By now, which is 2021, the research should have already started. Yeah. Okay. So I think many of us who are at least 40 years old and above will know that 1G is there. There's a first generation of mobile technology where you use this big Tupperware like or drinking bottles like kind of phone, where in Chinese we call it the takata, to make your voice call. Okay. And in 2G, I think most of us would have used at least one Nokia phone before, right? Nokia was the leaders in mobile technology or mobile phone in the 2G world, right? And one of the killer application was the SMS, which I don't know how many of us still use it today, but it was really a killer application. Okay, and 3G. So people are thinking, hey, 3G when it came out in early 2000, right? People are thinking, why do I need 3G? I'm happy with making phone calls. I'm happy with doing SMS, right? It's really very useful. And for those of you who may know pager, right? Pager was there before the being killed by the SMS to some extent. Yeah. So in the early 2000s, 3G came out, and the selling point at that time, it became that the killer application is mobile internet, right? So imagine how many of us actually switch to things like WhatsApps and killing the IDD revenue, right? So that is really the killer application for 3G, which is data. So comes 4G, right? People think, hey, I'm very happy already. I don't need to incur hefty IDD calls bill. I can use my WhatsApp to even call long distance, right? I have social media, right? So why do we need 4G? So 4G at some point of time, I was implementing systems for 4G in Taiwan at that time, right? One of the very first before Singapore as well, right, for Asia. So why do we need 4G? People are thinking, hey, what's the killer application that can come in 4G, right? So again, for those of you who know what's happening today, right, when most of us are all still using 4G or LTE that we call it, right? Social media started with Facebook, and now of course we have TikTok and many other social media actually became the killer application. And the selling point is really video, because video, you need a lot of data. You need to be able to stream very well as compared to just using simple WhatsApp text, right? So video and social media became the killer application of 4G. So now question is, what is 5G? Right? So I think there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of exploration. There are business use cases being proposed, but to be very honest, just like how 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G started, right? There are some thoughts, but at the end of the day, it may be a different killer applications that come out. And this killer application can be anything from a foldable screen kind of device, which people are trying to say, hey, 5G, you need that. You don't want to carry a large device, right? But your mobile phone is too small to do proper enterprise kind of grade of work, right? So I may need to have a foldable phone that can kind of replace, and hopefully maybe one day will kill laptop as well, right? We don't know. This has been a pitch by some of the manufacturer. Another pitch is that 5G, yes, I can kind of implant it to human bodies, right? Even, right? Although this is not really an implant, right? Actually, there's already technology in China by this company called Royale, right? ROYALE, that does a lot of very thin panel kind of things that you can put this in on the shirt, on the cap as well, right? To become a panel. So this kind of panel, very lightweight panel, very thin panel, may be one of the killer application or killer enabler that's going to enable 5G to be widely adopted, right? From a consumer world perspective, at least. So frankly, nobody knows what is the 5G killer application. People are all trying to see how they can leverage 5G to build even new businesses. And later on, we can see some of the example. Yeah. Okay, so this is mobile technology evolution. For those who are above 40, you probably will know from 2G world onwards. Okay, so I think we talked a lot about 5G for the past 1.5 years. I don't know how many of you are really involved in 5G trials yet. Today, if you buy a new phone, most likely your phone will be a 5G enabled phone, right? But we don't really have a whole island wide of a commercial launch of 5G yet. So most of the time, as a consumer, you will not be using a 5G signals in Singapore yet. Okay, but of course there are some trials that's ongoing, and we can take a look about them in a while, right? Things like autonomous vehicle, things like some of the mobile clinic, things like some of the AR VR technologies are trying to leverage on 5G, and there are a lot of corporates and enterprise doing trials now on 5G. Okay, so these are some statistics, right? I presented something similar last year at NTU Skills Future, right? That was 2020 report, and I got the latest report 2021 in June, right? So last year we were talking about 83 operators, and within 1 year it's now grown double to about 174 operators, right? In 71 countries already kind of launched 5G trials or 5G commercial. Okay, and of course most of it actually came from China, right? And then about 70 plus country that's already have 5G spectrum ready. I wouldn't go into too much technical detail about 5G spectrum, right? But basically there are multiple spectrum that 5G will be running on. And in Singapore context, some of this spectrum today is being occupied, and we will need to kind of refarm some of this spectrum for 5G usage, right? If you notice, Taiwan is actually already having some commercial launch of 5G, and they actually retired the entire 3G already, right, about 2 years ago. So there will be refarming, what we call reusing, right, in layman's term, some of the spectrum that's used for other mobile technology or even satellite technology today. Okay, in terms of 5G subscriber growth, right, it's a very, I'll say, promising trend, right? It's about 36% year-on-year growth. Now we have about close to 300 million 5G subscribers globally, right? But it's also room for a lot of growth because it's only about 3.07% of the entire global mobile market. So although there's a strong growth year on year for 5G subscriber, but there's still a lot of room for increase, right? Because when you compare, there are still many others using 4G or below. Okay, and of course, the biggest change is you have close to 400 models of 5G smartphone. Last year, when I presented the statistics, was only about 100. All right, it's already 4 times more. So everybody from Samsung, Huawei, iPhone, right, and many others, they are all already 5G enabled phones, right? Although we can't really use the 5G signals yet in Singapore. So again, these statistics are encouraging and very interesting, but the basic question to answer is really, is the business model of 5G ready? So what are the real use cases? And does 5G just offer faster speed? So a lot of people think that, okay, what is 5G, right? When we think from a consumer point of view, yes, I will have faster speed. I can maybe download my video faster. That has been the pitch from a consumer end. But will you pay, I don't know, 2 times more if you were to use this technology, right? So maybe early adopters will be, right, in technology hype cycle, but a lot of time we need stronger use cases. If not, the adoption will be slow, yeah? So there are people coming out with more and more use cases, trying to see how they can monetize 5G because the CapEx investment is not that low as well. Okay, so a quick comparison with 4G, since I only have 15 minutes, right? So speed definitely is one of the reasons why we move from 2G, 3G, 4G to 5G, right? So we can see that in terms of throughput, right, that is kind of linked to speed, right? You can actually get 10 times faster as compared to LTE, which is a 4G based technology, right? But other than speed, there are actually many other things that 5G offers. And by knowing what they can offer, what 5G can offer, you can come up with new use cases, whether as a consumer or as an enterprise, to kind of better leverage and monetize from 5G. The first thing is called latency. This is something very unique for 5G, right? So definitely better latency, you can improve your download speed and all those things, but actually that's not the most important thing, right? Latency is important here, right? In 5G, we are looking at sub-millisecond, right? That means below 1 millisecond of latency. So the delay is much lower as compared to 4G, right? Which is 30 to 50 times much better. And this latency is important in mission critical applications that the response times needs to be very fast, the delay needs to be very minimal. And what are the use cases, right? Your autonomous vehicle will be one of them, because imagine you want to have a driverless van or driverless truck, right? Any response, any communication with, let's say, the mothership is very important, right? It has to be fast enough and very low delay. Same thing for any robotic or robots assisted operations, such as robotic assisted medical, right? Or operation or surgery. So all this, there will be communication between the main brain or the mothership and maybe the on-site robotic arms. So the latency needs to be very, very good. Okay, so these are some of the use cases of having a good low latency. The other one is connections, right? As compared to 4G, right, we can expect about 100 times more better connections per square kilometer for 5G. And why is this important again, right? We are talking about this thing called IoT. I think later on, one of the speakers will be talking about AIoT, right? So IoT will be one of the things to come, right? From a consumer perspective, today we have smart home, smart fridge, all these things are basic IoT, but there's a lot of enterprise IoT that's ongoing, right? Where people are trying to have video analytics, people are trying to have robotics to work in, let's say, a smart factory settings, right? Similarly, even from a nation perspective, right, government perspective, you're trying to do smart lampposts, you're trying to do multiple capabilities on a certain device. So you're going to have multiple connections, right? There are many pitch to say things like connected world, right? Massive IoT, right? So these are really enabled by 5G, where 5G offers the massive connection per kilometer square. Okay, so mobility again is the speed of this 5G is going to travel, right? Is about 1.5 times faster than 4G. Okay, architecture, we will not go down into details today, but it actually right on the 4G world, where we started what we call the near function virtualization, the NFV, and the software defined network, which a lot of the software function, a lot of the network functions are defined at the software level, rather than you need to climb up to the base station or any 5G network to do changes in configuration or maintenance. So there's a lot of software defined thing. And with that, 5G leverage on that and build further on that to introduce this thing called network slices, right? We won't have time to go into the details today, but basically you can imagine it's like different slice of cake. So every slices can be used for different industry or different purposes, slice and dice by either the capabilities of 5G or by the industry offerings. Okay. So this is, I would say everybody who have attended a 5G talk needs to know about this thing, right? This is the only takeaway if you forget every other thing. And I always tell my students, right, I introduced this term called 5G capabilities triangle, although this entire capabilities is from IMT under the ITU recommendation, right? So this is a source. So there are three capabilities that you need to know that 5G offer, right? Very basic. One is called enhanced mobile broadband, EMBB. Second is massive machine type communication, and then the ultra reliable low latency communication. So these are the short form, and these are the full words, right? And so what is EMBB, right? So again, this is very consumer based play that you can think of. So the AR VR technology that needs to have a very good speed, and you have as real time as possible, right? So these are leveraging on EMBB. And in fact, this is always the first 5G capabilities and use cases that most operators will offer. So today, if your local operator like M1, StarHub, Singtel tells you that you can use 5G already, very likely you are starting with EMBB capabilities, right? And we'll explain that in a while. Okay, so that's enabling a lot of AR, VR, cloud gaming, and so on and so forth. The other one is the massive machine type communication. As I mentioned, these are your massive IoT connection, the connected world, right? So the simplest one that you look at it from a consumer perspective is things like smart homes, right? It can go bigger into what we call smart cities, where you have connected lampposts, right? You have connected lampposts and truck, you have connected ambulance. So these are what you need to have a lot of device or machine-to-machine interactions. The third one is URLLC, right? And this is the one that I talk about. You need very low latency so that you have the precision, right? And this will go into things like remote steering, right? Autonomous vehicle, right? Even some of the drones that needs to be very highly low latency communication. Okay, so if you forget everything, as I mentioned, remember these three terms. Okay, so very quickly, there is two types of deployment technology of 5G, and that's why I say if today you can use 5G already, right, in most countries, it's because you are leveraging on this thing called eMBB capabilities, okay? And why is it possible? Because there's these two terms that you just briefly need to know. It's called NSA, non-standalone, and SA, standalone. So in many countries, they started 5G deployment in a non-standalone deployment method. That is where you actually is leveraging on your LTE, right, as a core, and only the new radio, that's 5G. So you can imagine it's a hybrid of still leveraging your core, your foundation that's on 4G already there, right? You add on something to the communication of the devices that is 5G, right? So that's something that is easier to deploy, right? But of course, you can't leverage and fully utilize the entire 5G offering, right? So it's only eMBB you can do that. And other capabilities of the MMTC and URLC of 5G can only be achieved through a standalone deployment, okay? So we all think 5G is important, right? And what are the different industry that have actually said that 5G will change? They are all transform their industry, right? First of all, of course, healthcare, right? Robotic surgery is one of the example. We will look at it in more details later on, right? VR, AR that's used in not just gaming, but also education. And education is not just going to schools, right? Even some of the hospitals that we know in China are already using VR to teach the doctors how to do remote surgery. Yeah. So this is an example of AR VR. Then of course, fish farming, which is not that relevant to Singapore. And this, you can actually link it to a bigger thing called smart agriculture, right? That can be really the agriculture, the plantation agriculture, or the farming type of agriculture, because you can put IoT devices there to monitor the yield of it, right? So we were actually discussing with one of the big group in Malaysia previously on how do you do smart rubber tapping, right? You actually put IoT, then you can start monitoring the yield, and you know when to send the people, the rubber tapper, to really go and tap the rubber, right? And monitor what's the best time, all those things, right? So it links also to analytics and AI. Okay, so again, this may not be relevant to Singapore, but it's a very common use case when I attended talks from Ericsson, Huawei, and many other 5G main players, right? They always talk about robotic mining. And if I were to extend this into a Singapore context, right, we do have some trials at PSA that later you'll see talking about unmanned operations and maintenance, right? So this is sending drones, sending machines, robots into, I would say, highly dangerous places to some extent. Okay. Smart tourism, another very interesting thing you may have seen online, right? There are people or companies doing smart tourism now. With COVID, you can't really travel, right? So people start taking videos or photos, right? And start putting some of the video cameras in even, let's say, the Africa Safari Zoo, that you can try to use, wear a AR VR glass, and then you can actually like running alongside with the lions in the safari. So I've tried that before, right? If you Google, you will get to see many of these smart tourism companies that's trying to do something. Okay. Live sport, again, this is another use cases where you again may be leveraging on AR VR technology, and in a sports stadium that you are seeing a very real kind of experience with the players in the stadium itself, right? And of course, another use case is that within a large complex or auditorium, how do you enable that you have all the good connections for all the audience there, and they can also do live polling and some other things on the spot. Yeah. And recently, if you read about there's this J.J. Lin's concert that's trying to leverage on AR VR technology, but there's a big bandwidth issue, although they've done multiple trials. So maybe 5G would really have helped them to solve that issue. Yeah. Okay, smart manufacturing is another key use case of a smart factory settings that we need the 5G. Okay, so I'm running out of time a little bit. Let me just go quickly, right? So very quickly, I'll just give you 2 pointers in this slide, right? So 5G really will impact manufacturing a lot. It's going to create 740 billion additional GDP by 2030. This is a breakdown by countries, right? I think you may get a copy of the slides after the talk, so we can analyze the numbers more. But basically, many countries, especially China, are going into 5G smart manufacturing, right? Leveraging on the robotics, the video analytics, the AI to help to improve the throughput and output of the manufacturing. Yeah, and healthcare is another one, right? Rather than looking at additional GDP or growth, right, is looking at cost saving, because today healthcare in some countries are generally not that cheap, right? And even if it's cheap, people are always looking at affordable healthcare, right? So to benefit larger populations. So technology such as 5G, right, with a lot of remote patient monitoring that even Singapore is also pushing for it, right, is going to help to reduce the cost of healthcare, right, moving the patient traffic from primary care into home-based care. And you need a lot of devices, and you need the massive IoT connections that 5G can enable good and low latency communication, right, for remote healthcare to really happen. Okay, I don't think I have the time to go through this use case, but you can see those in color, right? Orange colors are the different technology enabled by 5G in a smart manufacturing or smart factory settings, right? Very quickly, predictive analytics using either video analytics or sensor based, right? You can capture and you can send predictive maintenance, yeah? And then you can have a fleet management of sensor base. So once things are done, you send it to the truck and start the logistic and the supply chain, right? So this is the different 5G enabling technology use cases in a smart manufacturing settings. Okay, very quickly, smart healthcare, right? So what I've done is I split into 3 areas. So this is what EMBB is going to enable, right? AR, VR technologies in smart healthcare remote education, right? IOMT is just like the IoT, but you add the M inside called medical, right? So this is again doing multiple remote monitoring and multiple wearables or devices that you need that 5G communication to enable so many devices or so many machines talking to each other, and you can still get the communication correct. Okay. The last one is URLC, which again, as I mentioned, is very important, and we can see in the next slide, right? China already have this remote surgery being done early this year in China, right? Successfully being conducted. And if you look at the left-hand graph here, right, those in red color is really the strong 5G use cases, because we say 5G have sub-millisecond low latency, right? Anything below 1 millisecond. So below 10 millisecond here, the guided robot can still be done by 4G or dedicated lease line, right? But to do this too, really you need the 5G technology, right? High throughput, low latency. Okay, new value systems, what I want to say here is really that people always think that 5G is a telco world kind of things, right? Only telco people need to know, or people who are working in the telco. It may be true in the past, right? But as how we can see in 4G world, the OTT, right, over the top providers such as WhatsApps and others applications actually leverage on 4G or leverage on telco communication network to build their use cases. So this is like a disruptor, right? OTT providers in the 4G world. Same thing in 5G ecosystem, the disruptor will not be just OTT, but also the industry. So you will potentially have the financial industry, you potentially will have the manufacturer who is going to add and value add themselves into 5G ecosystem, right? So it's no longer just telco trying to sell connectivity. You need to work with industry partners to come up with a lot of use cases. So these are some examples. So I actually shared this slide in stock analyst session before, and they like it very much because people think that 5G, how can I benefit from it, right? So apart from those on the side, right, which they are all the current telco players in different forms, right? The one in the middle, so that these are the additional ones that can really benefit. So people are trying to look at, hey, can I buy some stocks here, because they potentially can leverage on 5G and have a good growth, right? So these are some of the new players that will benefit from 5G. And you can see that there's an EMBB, MMTC, URLC that we can map it into the different use cases and capabilities of 5G. Okay, very quickly, 5G status, this is being updated every now and then. So there are already 5G trials that's happening around the island, right? You have, for example, the urban mobility by NTU and M1, right? To do, if you go to NTU, you have a driverless shuttle in the campus, right? And then we also have Capital Land also trying some of this AV and smart estate, right? And then the one that I mentioned, PSA, right? That's another one that's happening on the unmanned operation and maintenance. So there's quite a lot of 5G that's happening, right? Trials that's happening in Singapore. But the commercial rollout, as we know from IMDA, is 50% island-wide by end of 2022 and another 95%, right, by 2025. Okay. I will skip this one, but basically it's talking about their future skills needed in 5G, and you can come and attend the class since I'm kind of running out of time, right? We will discuss some of the skill sets, right? And we'll build business cases when we are in the 5G classes. Okay, but one key point is 5G is in the ecosystem of future skills. So by learning 5G, right, you're not just learning 5G alone, right? 5G will give you the fundamentals, but in order for 5G to have strong value proposition, it needs to work with many other technologies such as AI and big data, right? Because as I mentioned, right, a lot of this predictive maintenance, I can have the connectivity, I can have the sensors, but someone need to analyze it, right? AR, VR is also another technology that works hand in hand with 5G to provide the use cases. Same for IoT, right? So these are the, I would say, ecosystem of future skills that if we want to build our skills towards, right, we can look at this direction. Okay. So last but not least, I think someone put in the chat as well. So this is where you can sign up for the 5G class organized by NUS. So me and my team will be the course leader and the trainer for that, right? We have conducted multiple classes already with the industry players. So welcome to join. It's SSG funded. I don't know what's the final cost. You can take a look at the website. Yeah. So with that, it ends my part. Sorry for kind of rushing through. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I hand over to the next speaker, Chi Seng.
Thank you, Jim, for his wonderful sharing of 5G fundament overview, especially the triangular capability. All right, so I'm going to share with you further how we can actually augment solution with 5G and AIoT. All right, maybe let me first start off with some overview of evolution of the Internet of Things. So in the year 2010 to 2016, where we deploy sensors, it mainly focuses, the IoT mainly focuses on connectivity and data aggregation. That's around the years 2010 to 2016. Then came data analytics coming in to add analysis capability to IoT, to engage data. Collecting data alone is pretty meaningless, but we need to understand it, we need to use it. So data analysis comes in so that we are able to implement effective decision-making processes for your business processes, manufacturing. So that brings us to the IoT era between 2016 to 2019. Then the popularity of AI boomed so much that we now can actually add learning capabilities to these IoT devices. It's not just about making effective decision anymore, but it's about being able to self-correct, recover mistakes and errors that's already running at runtime. So the big buzzword, besides 5G, AIoT is the trend, and AIoT actually helps to implement a lot of this is the key digitalization solution that you will be focusing on in these recent years. Okay, so this is a quick overview of how we actually see an IoT system, overview architecture. So I'm going to help you. It looks very complicated. I'm going to help you to understand this. So we first start off to look at the lowest level, where we actually think about the asset of interest, what we want to measure. For example, whether you want to look at the water, the air temperature, even ask people the location. So all these are the asset of interest that you want to collect data, and then you look at what are the device and sensors that are available. Now talk to your sensor specialist. Now deploy the correct sensors, read the analog world, collect this data. Then you will form a sensor network that sends data to the gateway. So gateway it helps to aggregate data together. Gateway helps you to forward data to the main transport network that is at the top. So you can actually see this gateway helps you to forward data to the internet. So in English, gateway literally simply means it brings you to another world. So your sensors, your devices collecting data in the analog world, if you don't forward it to the internet, is pretty much local, and that's not what IoT actually wants to achieve. So Internet of Things simply means all these sensors are connected each individually governed by each of these gateway that forms a sensor network, and the gateway will help to forward the data to the internet. All right. So the internet over here will have all the data aggregated, where you have a middleware piece that runs in the cloud. It doesn't mean that it's only one server. It can be a multiple server operating together towards a common goal. But this middleware will have visions and insights of what is available at the lower layer, providing services to the top, where you can actually write application users using these services provided, and you'll be able to control the devices at the lower layer. So this is roughly how you actually see an IoT system. So it may seems to you a very simple, but actually it's a very complicated system, because at any connection over here, at any point, if there is a failure, basically your solution, your system will not work. So the reliability is very important as well. So with IoT coming in, it simply bring us that there is a requirement to mass deploy. We're going to have many devices deployed outdoor, indoor, everywhere, and the question of being able to connect to many devices comes in, and yet at the same time has to be low power. So with the demand, with IoT bringing in demand for that thirst for low power. So I'm sharing here with you actually low power before the cellular network all comes into play. They see this LPWAN thing, which actually was very much in the limelight for a while because of this low power technology. This LPWAN devices for the IoT that we wanted to deploy hopes that there's this dream list, this ideal 5 tests that we hope the LPWAN device is going to do for us is that it should operate for 10 years. Because when we deploy sensors outdoor, getting a power supply will be a big problem. So most of the time it's going to be operating based on battery. So we hope that it can actually run for 10 years with the battery. It's going to be wide, yet still wide coverage. And I hope that it's going to be cheap, because it's going to be mass deployment, right? So it cannot be too expensive. And the good thing is that because for IoT, most of the time it doesn't need to be too data crunching, so it's okay to be test or byte. But let's say if there's a need for high data rate, then we can actually consider 5G back, which I will cover a bit more later. Then of course that mass deployment is needed. So one base station, we hope that it can actually control up to 10,000 devices. This is just the dream list, but it doesn't mean that all the LPWAN is going to achieve all these specifications. This is just trying to give you a feel what the LPWAN wants. Because if I were to go back to my architecture diagram, how we connect the sensor, it can be the LPWAN. So looking at the graph, bottom left and bottom right, it gives you the axis of range coverage versus power consumption. So the first one is range coverage versus power consumption. Normally, the wider the range, the higher is the power consumption is, but not forgetting the data rate. So if you have high data rate, there's always this triangular relationship. If you have high data rate and you want wide coverage, most likely the power consumption will be higher. But let's say if there's a need for you to reduce the power consumption, then you probably may have to look at whether to compromise in the speed or whether to compromise on the range. So the low power wide area network actually looks at the quadrant where we actually don't need the devices to be very fast, but yet we want to maintain that wide coverage. All right. So with all the data, all the devices all deploy widely everywhere. I want to so-called highlight this important concept of operating system. So operating system for our computer, like our Windows, Linux, iOS, Android, they actually it's an operating system that manage the resource of your laptops, the screen, the keyboard, the mouse, the touchpad, the speakers. Maybe your USB disk, your folders. Within your folders, you have user A, user B. User A can see user B file, but not user B cannot see user C file. So all these user rights control. So for IoT system, which is so large scale, widely deployed, it is not so easy. You will need a middleware. You will need a IoT platform somewhere sitting in the cloud service to have the vision of all these resources. There will be device management, access right control, So you will need to have some very good software to do this overall control. So over here, there are some brands, just to share with everybody, some IoT operating system, or sometimes we call it the IoT platform that is available. You can see over here in the list. What I want to highlight to you is that in Singapore, we have actually this government cloud, the Kada cloud actually happening. So government agency, if you want to write on quickly to do some IoT projects, you can consider this piece. Right, then in Singapore Poly, actually, we also have a partnership with TICO, where we actually have a module that teach data analytics, where we actually show our students the evolution of how data analytics affects the IoT period. We used to run very reactively, run until failure, and then we react on the issue. Then we hope that we can improve the maintenance, improve the stability, where we actually do scheduled periodic maintenance. That is what we call preventive maintenance. Then with sensors, we're able to gather conditions, and we're able to measure and monitor the condition. And when it fails, we know, and then we can actually start to bring in the serviceman rather than waiting for the scheduled period. And there came with a lot of data gathered. We'll be able to predict failure even before the system failed. And we will be able to do more proactive activity to understand the root cause, so that the operation will continue to be seamless and stable. So you can see data analytics brings a lot of benefits to IoT, and that's actually the key thing in IIoT. All right, so in Singapore Poly, we have this 5G Garage, a collaboration with Singtel and Ericsson. We do a lot of 5G POC, live lab testing, prototyping with enterprises, with startup companies. We even do courses teaching. I think later on, one of our colleagues is going to share with you the various activities we have in SP and the courses available. So I'll leave this piece later on. And the facilities, the 5G live signal facilities that we have in SP is actually the standard, is a sandbox environment. It is not connected, it is not part of that public 5G network. Why is this been a good thing? Is because our R&D project, there's a lot of time where we need to do customized settings, POC. So with this sandbox 5G environment, we are not afraid of trying, and you won't break and disturb the public 5G network. So that is the kind of network 5G network we have in SP. All right. This is a summary of what Jim has already covered beforehand. All right. This is just to just wanted to highlight again. 5G is not just the upsize of 4G. 5G actually offers a lower latency. With 3 signal bands that actually the lower band will cover for wider coverage. The mid band is the high band will actually target for higher speed data rate, and the mid band is actually a compromise between the coverage and the speed. Then with the edge cloud coming into play, we are able to connect virtual machines that is near to the enterprises, the edges, that will bring down the latency even lower. All right, that actually this edge cloud capability with 5G technology coming in is able to allow us to run very high performance computational in the edge cloud, where that helps to lighten a lot the requirement that we need to buy for the client devices. Then we have the network slicing piece. All right, I think Jim already mentioned we have the mobile, the massive IoT, and also the ultra latency. So each slice actually get based on that nature, it gives you a certain quality of assured service. All right, so this isn't there in 4G. So together, what I share with you, the IoT structure with the IIoT coming in, and after my session, actually, Tiong Gi is going to cover AI portion. So AIoT together with 5G is going to bring the entire performance of our current IoT system to a whole new level with a real-time responsiveness and monitoring. All right, this is to show that the SP is actually in line with the government Green Plan 2030. This is to give you a brief concept actually how you can achieve greater efficiency. no, you could actually, no, the first thing to do is, of course, looking at how we can harvest green energy from wind, from solar, store it, the charge in a battery. Then the next thing you can do is choose a solution that actually is low power by nature. One very straightforward example will be, instead of using the fluorescent lamp, you use an LED lamp, use the EC motor, for example. So all these are low power by nature. Now you can actually, if you do not know about digitalization, if you do not know much about programming or whatever the case, just choosing a technology that's low power in nature, you're actually helping the green plan for Singapore already. Then moving forward, now in order to do bigger, the next thing you need to do is to digitalize your asset. Our computer is made in such a way that it only understands digital data. So in order to be able to understand the current status of your current devices, you will need to digitalize your asset. And the way to digitalize your asset is really today is IoT. So IoT is one of the biggest technology behind how you can digitalize your asset, and with all the data that you collected, with the data analytics, with the AI coming in, you will be able to run optimization on the operation. And with this four portion, you will be able to achieve greater energy efficiency. So this is what I'm going to share with you quickly. And the 5G and AIoT Center within Singapore Poly focus on advanced manufacturing, smart building, and green and sustainable solution. I will quickly go to the use cases so that you all can actually have a feel of what to expect, how we can actually implement 5G and AIoT use cases. So this example I'm going to show you is about energy load monitoring in the advanced manufacturing environment. So you can imagine, the energy was actually, there's an energy meter at the main incoming, learning what are all the devices, in the factory area, or maybe in a shop floor, any equipment that is actually large, drawing enough large power energy, you're able to monitor by devices. So actually there are some proprietary AI algorithms that's able to learn, I have actually machine A, machine B, machine C running, with machine A maybe drawing about 900 kilowatts, and it contributes to how many percent of this total bill that I'm paying. And suddenly you realize, hey, this particular machine, it usually tends to draw about 10% of the power, suddenly increases to 20%. That actually spells some trouble. So this is a form of how we can actually digitalize your asset, and all these data are all forwarded to the cloud, and you'll be able to write application and do all this monitoring. Now you have energy meter is not just only for factory, it can be for household. So you can actually imagine with IoT, the number of devices that's going to be deployed in a smart city, for example, is going to be a lot more. All right, so that's why 5G comes in to help in this case. With 5G coming in, the video analytics portion, because we all know that video is actually quite bandwidth intensive. With 5G coming into play, it makes a lot of video related application possible. So one of that use case I'm going to share here is how it's getting common to use camera as a generic sensor, as though it's our eye. We can plant it at intermediate stage for performance, for quality assurance check. In this example, in a water bottle, mineral water manufacturing line, the company can install a camera like this and do an AI detection of all the manufactured bottle, and be able to detect whether the label is there or not. So you can see in this example, 3 of the bottle is being detected, and 1 of them is not detected. And that, without the detection, can actually goes to the rejection tray, while the one that is okay actually move forward to the next stage. All right. And now with a camera on a drone, drone is flying, you can't be wired, and it has to be high speed streaming live video back. That leads us to the need of furthermore to use 5G, because now you're going to stream cameras captured by this drone back to your command center, running some intensive AI detection, for facade cracks, building cracks. Your workers no longer need to scale or climb the high walls to do all this kind of checking. Your floating solar panel, you no longer need to deploy your workers that goes on a boat. regularly to do the checking for faulty panel or to clean up the bird sheet. Where are all the bird sheets? No, it's going to be very precise and focused kind of a maintenance. And all these are streaming back to the command center, and you're able to monitor the activity in real life. All right. Okay. Then the other thing will be fire smoke detection. We all know that our buildings today, the BCAs mentioned that we must have that smoke detector. But smoke detector alone, although is a vital component to detect a fire in most cases, but in big areas like warehouses, hangars where you have high ceiling, by the time the smoke detector detects the fire, most of the fire will probably has already be very big already. For fighting fire, every second counts. So all the existing cameras that we have, we can actually monitor a lot of places. The moment we see some fire movement detection, the camera sounds alert to the security guard to quickly look at the screen and to be able to react in time. So this is actually a very critical, crucial kind of safety features that worth mentioning. All right, and with just now we were talking about 5G being able to do massive kind of a deployment, right? So light was one of them. There'll be many buildings, many lights, many lampposts. But at the same time, it can be low power. So I'm going to show you a video here, which is a project that we did in SP. It's a car park lighting system solution. So by default, the lighting is going to dim down to like 20–30%. By nature, it's going to save power. And there's motion sensor detected along the way when the car drive in, the person walk past, that lights. You see this person now walks in, the lights now lighted. The neighboring lights is going to be lit, and since it's the car park, now it's going to be, you can actually program and lit how many lights ahead, and you will follow the car, you will follow the person along the way, and after some time, those motion sensors which may not detect anything will start to dim down. And this kind of application, you can actually imagine it's a level 1, level 2 kind of implementation. So the level 1 will be purely autonomous, 30% when there's nobody, and then lighted the neighboring lights when something is on. After some time, it drops back. But you could rely, you can actually collect data and understand the moving patterns. So my exit is too large. Okay, the video is fishing. So it's actually trying to move around the lab to show you. It's actually a real project that we have in Singapore Poly. So if you are interested, all right, I'll pause the video. I'm sorry that it's a bit loud. I didn't test. I thought it was fine. But in any case, feel free to email me if you have some question. All right, so environmental sensors is another kind of a smart building environment. It's going to be a norm. In your every offices that you have, the classroom, any space. You can imagine. It's going to be this kind of environmental sensor can be easily deployed to measure air quality, the temperature, the humidity, the lighting level, the occupancy, whether it's occupied or not. So all these kind of a multi-sensor in one is going to be there available. It can be a Zigbee version for low power, Bluetooth mesh, or it can be also what we saw 5G as part of the massive IoT deployment. Okay, so we also do industrial project. Now we actually help companies to enable its vertical farming using IoT. Now with this kind of IoT constant monitoring, we can actually help to grow the plant at a faster rate and have a better yield. And also we also can help a particular company to so-called digitalize its analog gas monitoring solution to a digital one, and all goes to a central monitoring. So this is the last part which I share. Thank you for hearing me out. I will pass my time over to Tiong Gi. He will share with you the artificial intelligence back to the future. So over to you, Tiong Gi.
Hey, thanks, Ji Sing. Hi everyone. I'm going to take change a bit of gear and change pace. I think Ji Sing did mention AI is at the heart of everything. I did AI quite far back, and what I'm going to take everyone through is my personal opinion of what AI went through and why AI wasn't successful in the past and how it will fare in the future. Okay, so this is where I started my AI journey back in 1988. I spent a couple of years in Massachusetts in a company called Digital Equipment. Those of you who are old enough will probably know Digital Equipment called DEC. It's the second largest computer company back then, and but it's since been displaced, bought over by HP. So that's me down there, very young and weighing half of what I'm weighing now. I have a mentor, Tom Foley. He is still in AI. In fact, he founded an AI company in Japan, listed it, and probably living a good life in Osaka. But this is the AI team, and Digital was right at the forefront because of a system that Digital did. It was directly after the first AI winter, right? So I'm going to talk about the AI winters afterwards. Digital went into a very, very good application for AI called XCon, configuration of the systems. So the XCon is an AI-based system, expert system that help the company configure system. You must imagine that way back then, systems are big, computer systems are big, very complex, requires a lot of expertise to do it. And Digital came out with this system that was a hit, saved the company a lot of money, and then from there, the AI research center boomed. So back in the 1980s, essentially there are two key systems that dominated AI, expert systems and artificial neural network. Back in the 80s, expert systems were more popular versus artificial neural network because of XCon. XCon was a system that Digital used to actually configure the system. Essentially what it does is that it captures knowledge from an expert into a knowledge base, and then through a rule-based engine, be able to actually then distill knowledge to somebody who's not so expert. Artificial neural network were also in the background, but artificial neural network wasn't that popular then because I think computing power, lack of data. But today, actually, you look at it, right? Artificial neural network became your deep learning, your machine learning. That system became to the forefront of where artificial intelligence is today. So I talk about AI winter. AI actually started in the 60s, and there were a lot of hype. And the first AI winter came in the 70s because a lot of hype came in, but AI couldn't actually fulfill the hype of what it's supposed to do. And so back in the 90s, I was doing AI in the 80s, a lot of hype as well, Digital, and a lot of companies came in. A lot of people are doing artificial intelligence, knowledge-based companies come in, Knowledge Craft, KEE, those are large companies. And again, AI couldn't fulfill what people are expecting out of it. So the second AI winter came. The worry then, of course, is whether there will be a third AI winter, given that there's so much hype on AI today, and can it fulfill the AI expectations of what it can do? Singapore started on AI also way back, actually back in the early 1990s. There is this big system. You look at the Singapore AI, the very, very first one that is successful is done with PSA. It's the ship planning system, SPS. I used to work there as a part-time programmer. So I will do my days in Digital Equipment on the weekday, and Saturday, Sunday, I'll go to PSA to do part-time programming. So we're using Objective-C way back then. That's the precursor of C++. And it was very successful. Essentially, it's constrained programming, right? And very successful, a very real good life use case that has actually evolved over the time to where PSA today help us to also clinch the Best Sport in the World award. The other one is a big initiative. I don't know whether people know that there was actually a government project. The Japanese government and the Singapore government came together and set up JSAC. So JSAC was actually headed at that time by Sok Ken Wai. Sok Ken Wai today is the CEO of Crimson Logic. And I was offered a job there. But unfortunately, I look at it, that was back in 1992. I don't think AI would take off at that time. So I turned him down, which is in retrospect a good thing, because JSAC actually shut down, I think, in 1994. Again, due to a lack of funding and lack of proven track record in terms of deployment. AI has been used quite a fair bit today in fraud detection. Back in the early 1990s, actually, together with my team at that time, did a proof of concept for DBS Bank to look at AI fraud detection. So I developed a system using OPS5. OPS5 is an early AI language. And essentially, look at fraud detection. It's not changed very much since last time. In terms of what you look at is you look at patterns, right? So if there's unusual patterns, you flag it out. And but why is it used so extensively today? Is due to two reasons: computing power and data. So data has become a lot more massive, and computing power also enable that to be done a lot faster, a lot quicker. So data is very, very important, especially in terms of machine learning. Machine learning requires a lot of data, and data allows the machine learning to actually create new paths, new levels, and that enables you to actually look at things in a new perspective. So deep learning is actually an aspect of machine learning, and deep learning has actually been applied in a lot of projects. You look at a lot of visual recognition. There are actually image factories in US where actually helps to train systems to actually look at, for instance, is this a dog in animals in different levels, cars in different images, to train it so that it can recognize the images. So a lot of this became very, very real life application today and being deployed quite extensively worldwide. The other area I think that would be very useful, and I think it's taking root today, is natural language processing. Natural language processing has been around for a long, long time, actually. The very early days of natural language processing, I remember playing with this. I don't know how many of you know ELIZA. ELIZA, you can Google it. ELIZA was done in the 1960s. In fact, it was supposed to be a program to simulate a human psychologist or physiotherapy, they call it in the US. Why did they do that? Because physiotherapists essentially ask questions. So at the end of the day, you ask a question, the system, you answer. Don't play with it. I think it was quite interesting when I was playing with it back when I was a lot younger. This one spins off actually quite a lot of competition. The most famous competition, at the end of the day, is this one award called Loebner Prize Award. Everybody is trying to simulate a program that can trick the human being that you are actually a human behind when it's actually a computer. I remember when I was back in one of the IRs as a CIO, we were looking at systems to actually take calls for booking of things within the resort. When we were looking at it, there was a systems that we were evaluating. It can take calls and it can answer in very human-like language, human-like speech, and be able to actually take calls and answer at least 30% of all calls. So after a couple of years of training, you can answer up to 70% and probably higher today. So machine learning, natural language has progressed quite a fair bit to the level it is today. Okay, I'm not sure I have the time to show this, but I think I'm probably not going to show it. Essentially, this is a system you can find. We're going to share the slide, right? So I think essentially it's a very, very interesting video around how advanced AI has become. But even nevertheless, no matter how advanced natural language processing has came, it will still screw up. It will still not be as good as a human in terms of the interaction. Go take a look at that. So I won't cover that because I think you're probably running quite a fair bit of time.
Let me give you another example.
Yeah, that's the one. That's Google's CEO. Okay, another reason why things are becoming so much better today is the ascent of algorithms. So algorithms are actually at the heart of all deep learning. So algorithms become better and better. So in terms of learning, things are better. And a lot of things are on the cloud today, right? On Google, they have AI algorithms that you can actually plug and play versus in the past where you got to spend a lot of money to actually do AI programs. A lot of questions came back to us around our jobs at risk. Is AI going to replace everyone? I think yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there is a real risk. So you look at cognitive labor, right? Labor that requires a human interaction. So this is a graph. Social side means requires social interaction. Asocial doesn't require a lot of it. Jobs that require optimization and jobs that are more creative and strategy-based. So no prices for guessing. Those at this level is quite safe, right? Your psychiatrist, your CEO, your criminal defense attorney is all very safe. They're safe because of the fact that all this require you to think, strategy thinking that today, I mean, AI still are not able to do as well as a human being. At this level, you are probably have a huge risk. A telemarketer, I mentioned just now, the call center today, you probably wouldn't know that you are talking to a human or talking to a computer. I mean, so good. Natural language has come to a level that they can almost trick a human being because when we speak, we don't speak very smoothly. So we actually have pause, we sometimes, stutter. And systems can actually emulate that. Over here, wedding planner, I think depending on how things goes, but I think these are the jobs that would also have a bit of risk, but probably less than those over here. Slow creep are those over here, the artists, the scientists. We have seen, art pieces that is done by computer that is really, really good, right? Completely drawn by algorithms. Scientists do a lot of research. A lot of this research work can be done by AI and algorithms as well. How about physical labor? Physical labor, similar, right? So those that require quite a fair bit of social, for instance, home caretaker, physical therapies, versus over here, a bartender. So bartender today, I mean, a lot of time bartender do play a social skill, but a lot of what they do can be actually automated by computer. For instance, the mixing all the different cocktail, that can be actually very precisely mixed by a computer. But bartender play a role in terms of interacting with the customers. So they still have a role, but for how long, I don't know. But on the other hand, you have an assembly line operator, dishwasher, food harvester. Well, those are already, deep danger because a lot of these are already being replaced by robots, replaced by systems. On the slow creep part, your aerospace mechanic, today you probably still have a job, but that is increasingly being taken over by robots as well. I mean, I give you an example, right? So I invest in companies as well. And recently I got a company that came to me with an investment around a robot to do very, very micro robot to actually do operation of a human body. So this robot can go in and actually take out your tumor. That, when you look at a human surgeon, right? Sometimes you shake, sometimes you do things that might be detrimental to you. But robots today can actually go to the level, go into your body, do a cut, right? Do a micro cut of whatever tumor you have and come up. So very, very interesting. The dexterity of robots have come up quite a fair bit. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about this being, I'm coming from NUS as an adjunct there. I think AI in education is where I'm most interested in, and I think has the most potential. If you recall, Heng Swee Keat did mention a few years back that all schools are the same, right? So there's no good school or bad school. I think you know and I know, I think there is always a difference in terms of teachers, right? There are good teachers and there are teachers who doesn't do as well. So today, I think the schools are very much a factory model, right? Student goes in, a teacher teach, and then they come out, you have a year-end assessment or your quarterly assessment. So very factory model. What AI can do, and I think there's a lot of potential, and a lot of it is being tested in China very successfully. And a lot of these AI companies in education are in fact going IPO until the recent clampdown by the Chinese government. I mean, just imagine for a moment, right? You have a class of 20, 30, and many classes, and through what they're doing now, a Zoom call or whatever, a teacher can actually, the best teacher, that means among the whole institution or whatever, we choose a few of the best who can deliver the best, can deliver to many classes, and then there is another teacher right at the classroom who can observe around interaction, around the progress. Through AI, through computer image recognition, you can actually monitor whether attention is being captured. You can actually monitor progress. You can actually monitor whether students understand. And all these are already available today. So if you can imagine putting all this together, everybody can have access to the best teachers. Everybody can actually, the teachers can then actually assess whether students are learning or not learning. And you can have actually very quickly, right, poll everyone to look at, do you understand this topic or don't understand this topic? A teacher can then slow down, fasten the pace and whatever. So I think this is the potential, and there are many companies out there. And I think there is so much we can do, especially in tuition, right? I think there's a lot of attention today in China around education, where you have a tuition after your class. If we can actually have this embedded in our education system, just imagine, right? Nobody needs tuition anymore. The entire system can actually be taught, and the follow-up can actually go into after class. The progress for every student can be different. I think the key thing that you can look at why this can happen is facial recognition, there is a lot of advancement. Posture analysis, the way you sit, the way you actually look at the thing, you can actually look at whether a student, you've captured the student attention. Clicker questions can actually enable you to actually understand, see whether everybody understand what is at stake. So I think with that, I think that's where I'm most excited at. And I think that is where I think we would see the best potential for AI, personally for me, in terms of bringing up the next generation. Okay, so I think AI is a new electricity, and big data is, at the end of the day, the oil that powers it, which is why AI is a lot bigger today versus back in the 80s, early 90s, when I was actually actively pursuing it, right? So I think I'm going to hand over to the next speaker now, because I think we're probably right at 1:15. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending the session.
Okay, thanks, Yonggi. Yeah, hi everyone. Let me just take the last couple of minutes to just share with everyone this 5G and Telecoms Program Manager. I think that this event is a way for us to also outreach and let everyone know about this program that we have, and I'm happy to be here to share some of these. I think we know that there is just a little bit of time that we have, but nevertheless, I think this is a good platform, and we hope that you all will be aware of what we are doing. So this basically the 5G and Telecoms Program Manager has been appointed by MDA and myself. My name is Jugi, and I'm from Singapore Polytechnic, and together with my colleagues from NUS, we are honored to be appointed by IMDA since last year to so-called manage all the manpower development in Singapore on the 5G, in terms of the 5G ecosystem. So again, very quickly, just to explain to us what is the things that we are doing. I think the key thing that we are trying to look at is in terms of 5G adoption and specifically manpower development. And the way we are doing it, we are looking at three things. Okay, one is in terms of the demand. We want to understand the demand in terms of manpower development in areas of 5G and related technologies, as well as we want to look at the supply of it through not just SP, NUS, but also all the various IHLs and academic institutions, along with the private training providers, to look at what are the supply in terms of these courses are. And as we consolidate them, then we hope to be able to come up with a very robust and comprehensive training, as well as programs, so that the whole industry can benefit. And the other thing we hope to do is to also promote this manpower development through our outreach and publicity effort. So these webinars like these are also a way for us to let everyone know what are the things that are coming up. All right, so I won't go into the details on this, but basically we are really rolling out a course and program framework, which will include many of the different courses in the areas of 5G and its related technologies. And we will tier it in basic, intermediate, and advanced, so that different individuals as well as companies then can come on board. And we are trying to work together to really path up the way in order for us to able to adopt and understand about 5G and all these technologies, so that as 5G is being deployed around the nation, we are well placed to be able to leverage on what are needed. And just now you heard some of the use cases, the exciting use cases. I think it comes because of the training that we can embark on. So that's what we are looking at. Okay, so this is just one example of the kind of training that we are trying to do and consolidate. While we consolidate from all the different institutions, we are also rolling out different types of programs. And one of the programs that is coming up will be this 5G and Telecoms Enablement Program that we hope that will include things like learning journey, things like basic 5G courses, and as well as job role specific in-depth courses for those who want to embark further into 5G. And we also help companies who wish to undergo workplace transformation to just really facilitate the whole process of understanding how they can 5G and some of these technologies be able to help them in terms of their workplace transformation. So already we are constantly consolidating some of these courses, but already we have a number of courses related to 5G, more on the fundamentals. We are rolling out more in-depth courses, so keep a lookout that from the different institutions. We will be broadcasting them through our website, which will be launching also in due time. So, but here are just some courses from the various academic institutions. Just now you heard from Jim. His is one of the courses, but there are other courses from the various polytechnics and universities, and more will be coming up in due time, as well as other areas. So please keep a lookout, and I hope that we will also have other platforms where we can continue to share in terms of how this development can take place. So that's all I have. It's meant to be a very short introduction. You will see more of myself and some of my other colleagues who are in this 5G program. And if you have more information, if you require more information or you have questions, do reach out to us. There is this QR code here that you can scan to enter your info, and we will keep you updated on things like the events, the activities, and even exciting new programs that we have in store for everyone. So I would like to take this time to thank everyone for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So now we're heading over to our Q&A section. Over to Marilyn. Are there any key questions that you'd like to bring up?
Thank you, Hashika. I think we have replied many of the questions, 17 questions, in fact, we have replied. There's one question that we wanted to take on for, let me see. Oh, Jim has already replied to one of the questions that is 6G is already being tested and used in China, while Singapore is backdated talking about 5G. What are the thoughts from the panelists? Would any of the speakers would like to attempt on this one?
Maybe I start first and the rest feel free to add in, right? So as I mentioned, if we look at the first slide, every 10 years you have one generation, right? So yes, China is moving fast enough, but frankly, not the whole of China is also 5G enabled yet, right? There are about, I think now it's about 25 provinces that have 5G being tested and rolled out, but it's not fully connected yet. So 6G is a lot of R&D currently, right? I mean, even Huawei wouldn't say that I have used 6G. There's a lot of R&D ongoing, there's testing, right? And again, one thing that we need to always note, any of this G, right, whether 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, right, you need an ecosystem to work, right? This ecosystem will also contains your mobile devices, right, any devices, and then your core devices. So all these things, even if you have the network technology, you still need your entire ecosystem to be there before it can be used, right? And also just now I also mentioned there's this thing called spectrum, right? So again, if today your spectrum is like in Singapore, some of the spectrum that we plan for 5G is being used by satellite, then you need to move that out before you can use that spectrum for 5G. So it's the same thing, right? Even if you have the 6G technology, you can't use any of this unless the ecosystem is ready, yeah? And whether Singapore is backward or not, right? Again, 6G is at the R&D stage. It's not at a commercial launch stage, right? I mean, definitely Singapore is involved in some of the R&D on the peripheral systems, but we are not directly involved in a 5G wireless technology research, unlike, let's say, Huawei in China, right? So definitely we will not be as advanced in that, right, in terms of that part of things. But of course, we're doing trials when the core technology is ready. And the core technology is not just about you working with it. You need to work with many regulatory bodies, such as the 3GPP, the ITU, and many others. So it's not a straightforward thing, and a lot of investment is needed. Yeah. So I don't think Singapore is backward as compared to many other countries. We are actually at the forefront to some extent of testing 5G and trying to launch it. There are many trials that I was also involved in. Yeah. But if you want to compare with China in 6G R&D, yes, we are not there yet. But it's, as far as I know, it's also not our plan to do a 6G R&D right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Would Jugi, Tionggi, or Ellen Chee-Sing would like to take a step at this one?
So yeah, to add on to Jim's statement, as much as a country who wants to stay at the very front or 6G in this case, we are talking about it, but a lot of times the commercial value also has to be considered. And today, I think there's a lot of value to really make 5G happens, and that's why the focus that we are having here today is really all about 5G application, and being successful in 5G applications will give us strong foundation to understand the 6G.
Yeah, maybe on the question, can I answer the question on the key challenges for Singapore to go full 5G? I think besides of course the thing about the technology and whether it's ready, there's one part of it because 5G is also evolving. In terms of the 3GPP, the standards are still coming up, and while the standards come up, then the vendors actually will implement that into their hardware, their systems, and then that's where the operators then will bring them on board as they roll that out. So that is like an evolving thing. But I think coming from the 5G program office, we are looking at the other challenge is really how do we prepare our workforce to be ready for 5G. So it's not just about the use of 5G, but it's about how do you leverage on the benefits of 5G. As just now mentioned by Jim and a few of the speakers, 5G is really about, there's a lot of things in terms of latency and in terms of the high capacity, in terms of the ability to be very flexible and doing slicing, and all these are the advantages. But we need people that knows how to leverage on all these advantages in order to come up with innovative solutions. So I think this is the challenge that right now we are trying to tackle by having the 5G program to really roll out some of these different trainings, as well as to consolidate what are the needs out there in terms of demand for this training, and then matching the needs to the supply of the trainings itself. So the training is not just about classroom training. Okay, we are looking at also very hands-on kind of training, how to leverage on developing solutions in 5G. So or solutions that can make use of 5G. Yeah, so that's what I would like to share on this.
Okay, just so I maybe put in one more word, right? I sit on the digitalization board for Sentosa Development Corp. So we are actually putting in 5G, a real life test, because you look at Sentosa, it's actually an island by itself, where you're going to put a lot of this 5G application into place. What I think 5G can be very helpful is Singapore is actually, you look at it, right? We derive quite a fair bit of our revenue coming for tourism. So you're going to have a lot of actually use case for tourism within Sentosa itself. So stay tuned. I think we are quite excited about that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Tionggi, for the last one. I think I actually wanted to go for key challenges that Singapore would like to go on for full 5G, but I saw that Jim has already replied to the key challenges like spectrum readiness, business values and models, skills readiness, So looking at the time now at 1:27, I'm so sorry that we overrun for this long haul. If you don't mind, kindly send us your questions at marilyn.tan@nus.edu.sg, or you can also reply to Smart Nation, which is, I think they have already given some feedback form at the end. If you have not done, kindly help us to do so. Yes, this is the page where you can scan the QR code. I would like to hand back the time to Hashika, and I would like to lastly thank you all for joining us on behalf of NUS. Thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marilyn, and thank you to all our speakers for joining us for this session today. It has been very fruitful. So you can scan the QR code to give your feedback. We've also provided the link in the chat for you to just click on it and go ahead. And if you'd like to find out more about Smart Nation and what we do, we also have a Smart Nation Telegram channel for Smart Nation ambassadors where we publicize our webinars. And we also have 2 upcoming webinars next week on Monday and on Thursday as well. One on learning more about Google My Business, and also about making financial planning easier with SG Findex and My Money Sense. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We hope you have a good day ahead.